So what do you think? Should we do a season 3?
Season 3, from the ground up. Let's do this.
9 people, 2 years, 1 race. We're about to see what happens in season 3. From the ground up all started in my opinion, when Ryan invited me on a mining pass ride that he created. And on that journey, we talked about everything.
I just like going into an area where I have no idea what there is.
It was 3 pretty much 10-hour days. 100 miles a day, 10,000 feet a day, 30,000 feet of climbing, 300 miles from Boulder to Crested Butte. It was still one of the coolest rides I've ever done. Hiking up, almost at the top of the last pass.
I remember when I convinced you to get like hiking mountain bike shoes.
It took a while. I
You
had
were
my
like,
grandmother buy them.
Carbon, oh, I'll be fine. And we ended up hiking for like 5 or 6 hours.
Just a mellow pass road.
But that's what's cool about the mountain bike is you can go places that almost nobody ever gets to go to, and you do it on your own power. Bringing that full circle with this project, I love pushing myself to try new things, and it's brought a lot of some of the best things in my life, and so I want to get more people experiencing things like the mountain bike has brought me. And through a hard challenge, sometimes that's possible. On this 3-day ride, that was our hard challenge. And in this project, Leadville is the hard challenge. And it's fun to do things with a team, with somebody else, experiencing these things, going through the hard times, just like we did over those 3 days. So many ups, a handful of downs for sure.
We all go through this.
But that's why this community and having it be this big team the last 2 seasons, that's, I think, what's the glue that's kept this whole thing together. And what's made it so special is these connections that we've made with, all these people that come together to make it happen.
Okay, I got another pro tip for you guys. If you're hiking biking for a while, sometimes you just gotta cup the bum, keep pushing.
Gosh, that was a good time.
This one, when it is done and dusted, will be the most definitive win that we've seen in Belgian waffle ride history.
My name is Alexey and Ryan. I have bike raced as long as I can remember, since 14 years old, and I co-founded From the Ground Up. Being from the Midwest, it always felt like I had a chip on my shoulder a little bit. Kind of any sport, but especially cycling. It was all about the altitude and the nice weather, and you're from California, or you're from Colorado, or you're from Utah. And going to some of these national level races for Michigan, it was always like, I can prove you wrong. I can train through the winter, I can play hockey, I can do whatever, screw off. And so yeah, Michigan's a bit temperamental. There's the 0-degree days that you kind of just like, first 10 minutes sucks, you're trying to freeze your face and hands, and once you get past that, you can go ride as long as you want. My dad was always very good at like turning that piece in your head. It's like, what I'm doing is making me better, making me stronger. So we used to like put weights on my bike and I just go ride outside in the cold for 3 or 4 hours. And I think that mindset has been my greatest asset from juniors until being professional is just like being able to compartmentalize and look down on things and problem solve. I think all starts with like getting out and riding in the freaking cold in winter by yourself as a kid. The first kind of memory on a bike that I have is from my grandfather, my Opa, and he had immigrated from Holland to Canada and kind of hadn't raced and ridden bikes his whole life. And I was probably about 12 years old, way before I was thinking about bike racing. And he used to take me out for like, you know, grandson, granddad day, but like a 60-mile bike ride where I cracked. And I remember one moment just completely coming apart with like, I don't know, 10 miles to go. And that entire last 10 miles, I would just pedal as hard as I could and I'd kind of fall back into his hand and he'd give me a push. And I remember thinking how it sucked to hurt and struggle, but somehow you just push through and there's a reason to do that. And I think that's the first kind of moment that I fell in love with sport more than just playing capture the flag and being good at running. You know, you just like you have a passion for something weird inside you that enjoys the hurt because you know what's on the other side. Fast forward a little bit, and probably the moment I really knew that I think there was a future in cycling for me, whether I wanted it or not. 2011, I was 16 and I won junior nationals. And that kind of gave me the opportunity to go race in Europe, experience Europe, go to the World Championships the first year. So I think making it to that top level of sport was kind of everything I'd ever dreamed of. I miss every day what I got to do there. It is the best of the best in the world, right? And that's a validation fact for someone who's super competitive. But I think part of me felt like I enjoyed the outset and the outside of cycling as much as I did racing on the bike. I wanted to be involved and I didn't feel like I ever could. And it took a while to come back over to America and figure out what I wanted to build over here. But I wanted to be more involved in the cycling community. I wanted to be more involved in the longevity of my time in the sport and be in control of it. And it never felt like I was ever in control of much. Being able to create your own schedule and being able to find your people at every event was awesome, right? That's the overarching goal. And to have that freedom to change little things and, you know, be more involved in someone else's life that you otherwise couldn't have because someone else was controlling your calendar was like chef's kiss on the decisions Lexi had made.
My name is Ryan Petrie. I'm a professional mountain biker. I'm a husband and a father. So growing up, my dad actually raced 10 years in the Tour de France, which was awesome. I had just had that experience. And then my mom was a professional mountain biker. Just kidding. Neither of them rode bikes at all. I don't know how I found biking. I mean, I do, but it wasn't competitive biking. Competitive endurance sports at all was not, it's not in my family like DNA. My dad was kind of running, he got into like 5Ks a little bit. That kind of started my endurance journey at the end of high school. Somebody introduced me to a triathlon. Long story short, I ended up really getting competitive in triathlon. I ended up going to Arizona State, I was on the tri team. So I wanted to do mountain bike racing on top of triathlon. There was a point where I wonder how fast I'd get at biking if I stopped running all the time and like swimming. And I just liked the mountain bike. It was more fun to me. I loved exploring and always been like that. Always been just a kid who loves to explore and see new things. And mountain biking was just like, wow, I can still do that, but now I can do it on a bike and see so much more. And my life has changed so much in the last 4 years. Now that I have Rowan, it's a total game changer because instead of me just wanting to like show myself new experiences, I just crave showing him new experiences. Being able to spend time with this little guy and living a little bit slower and not going quite as extreme it's an okay thing. And if it makes him laugh, then that's all I ever need. In a lot of ways, me and Alexi are the dads of the project. Like, we're the ones who are looking after everybody, making sure that they have what they need, making sure that they're having fun too, and just we're planning their trips for them. We give them lunch money. No, we don't give them lunch money. And it's all so that they can experience the benefits of riding bikes. I think because we both we're very different, we come at it from different angles, that's kind of the perfect storm that actually allowed this project to succeed. Then there's this pandemic and there's all these people getting into the sport, and it was, how do we make an impact?
Both of us kind of rethinking where we were in our lives and in our sport is what made the project happen. Otherwise, I probably would have just been into racing. I probably wouldn't have slowed down to think. I probably wouldn't have tried to figure out how to help someone take on something stupid and impossible. It's supposed to be impossible. It's supposed to be, in a sense, you're taking on something that you probably wouldn't do alone. You probably wouldn't do without help and support. The project forced a relationship that I have always enjoyed, right? All these people who have moved through it in the past 2 years. I mean, we hear from them, what, once a month?
Yeah.
That to me is almost more special than the end goal, which we can always play this game of, okay, the goal is not to finish Leadville, but when you get out there, it is. Everybody wants to, but it's the people. Season 1 was the year of learning. And I still think one of the actual crazy moments for me is when you and I put the video out, we didn't know what to expect.
We are looking for 3 entry-level riders. Our goal is to get them to the finish line of the Leadville 100 mountain bike race.
So what's the Leadville 100?
Well, it's 100 miles, hike a bike, can't breathe, cold as shit, lots of snacks, great time. And we are gonna help you do it.
I built this website on Squarespace. It was a backfill to a Google spreadsheet. And we woke up the next morning and I think it was like, we didn't know what to expect on the applications. I think there's like 100 and some applications, 200. And then...
Because we were like, we need to get like 50 people.
Yeah.
And then we have a good little pool and we can pick 3 people and we can just make this happen. And we'll just put this little thing together and it'll be fine.
And there was a time, a week in,
Yeah.
that I woke up and all I saw in all my Google was error, spreadsheet full. And I was like, what do you mean spreadsheet full? Spreadsheets that we were creating only accepted 1,000 names. And I remember being like, calling Ryan in a frantic, like, okay, whatever came in last night, we didn't get, I'm building a new spreadsheet right now, we're gonna reload. And it was that moment of realization of like, we might have just taken on something we can't handle. And it all worked out, but like we had to reframe our idea of what this was, because so quickly it wasn't just picking 3 people out of a small group in Colorado. It was people all over the country, people outside of the US, because we hadn't stipulated you couldn't apply from Europe and around the world. You just realize that that's the power of bicycles.
Yeah, we started running the numbers. We're like, okay, if the average video is 5 minutes long and we have 1,000, I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be here for weeks. And we were. We were.
It was chaotic, but it was exciting. Because after COVID, so it's very hard to get equipment and bikes and tires and everything you need to put on a project like from the ground up. But I remember the best times, meeting 3 incredible people who had honestly taken the biggest leap of anybody because they'd never seen the show. They had no idea what was going on. And walking up to each of their doors, walking up to Enzo's door and Roberta's door and Shauna's door was the craziest feeling. Meeting someone you thought you knew because you'd watched them through this video, this vulnerable video, that you really had no idea, as a complete stranger, and them taking the time out of their lives to do something crazy was, I think, something people dream about, like that feeling of being involved. And I think I always thought we were there to help them, but in some way it turns around when you get there. And then I think that was the first year where you and I were just like, we're building a family, we're building a team. It's not 3 people who can finish Leadville. It's not 3 people that are or were the best at their thing. It's 3 people who are going to push and pull off of each other to get the best out, because you and I were just going to be on the outside.
The Leadville Trail 100 was really a vision of Ken and Marilee, and the mine was closing down in 1982, and you could feel that impact. And so their vision was, how do we get people to come here and see what we have in our backyard? And the Trail 100 was born out of that. But it was really this idea that started from there. How do we get people here? How do we keep this economy? How do we grow it? How do we make it, sustainable? And I think what it's grown into is really remarkable. As you start to talk with different humans, you mentioned the word Leadville, in or out of Leadville, and you hear stories. Like the second you say Leadville, people have something to say about Leadville, and it generally, at least in my experience, comes back to something about these events. And it's a journey, like you ask, well, what is it? And I think it's so much more than just the day of the event. It's everything that went into getting there. And really, I know that they've impacted lives, Ken and Marilee, through this series. And the stories that you hear, the finish line, all those different layers are so powerful and so rich. But it's all that, right? It's the year or 2 or 3, and you've got folks who are like, I didn't make it this year, but I was back the next year. And it wasn't just so I personally could get across the finish line, but there's things changing inside of humans, and it's powerful. And when you get to be a part of that finish line and watch what's happening, you almost don't need the words to back it up, right? It's all right there in the emotional piece of what's happening as they come across. So it's so much more than just an event. It's the race, it's the humans, it's the whole thing. It's precious. I gotta stop. There's a depth to the whole community, to the whole experience, and it really begins long before you get here. And if we could bottle that up and put it out into the world, what we're willing to commit and what we're willing to dedicate and what we're willing to dig into, gosh, imagine the impact we could have on the whole world and how we work at things together. So I think it's powerful. If we can hang in that space, we can do anything. Great guts and determination.
It was extremely successful. A few years later, kicked in a 100-mile mountain bike race. The 100-mile mountain bike lit all the candles. The economy of Leadville, we hit our target. But then we found out our greatest contribution, and what we're focused on today, was making lives better.
It's common people doing uncommon things.
Your goal is to inspire, ignite the inner being of everyone, because we found out that that's what we do here.
Everyone would say success is getting that buckle, but I would say success is lining up, give it your all, being happy with you and with what you've done yourself.
I still think that's the crazy part.
It's so crazy.
In the span of 2 years, you put out these episodes, and I still think you and I look at some of those episodes and they're incredible, and you're proud of what this diary that's been created of 2 years, but you're still like, it's missing how crazy this is.
Yeah. When we were in Leadville, we're like, Ken, we're taking beginners and they're doing Leadville, and he's like, yeah, that's great. They're gonna do great. Of course they can do it. And we're like, no, but they're beginners. Like, tell us that it's insane and it's gonna be really hard. And they're like, no, if they have grit and don't quit, they will finish. And we're like, okay. But that's what the race is all about. I mean, they truly believe that if you have the grit and will, it might not happen in 6 months, but if you want to finish, eventually, you can make it happen. And then we're actually we're moving these people, and they're changing, and that's what we're trying to, and they're getting into this sport, and they're reaping the benefits.
And you saw that change.
And you totally saw that change. And at the end, that year, they got cut off at Twin Lakes, and it was okay. They were all, you know, they were crying happy and sad tears at the same time, and that was fine. And they're all, you know, still riding bikes, and, you know, it's just something that I'm really proud of, that we were able to put this together.
I wish I could continue, but that's all I had.
Season 2 of From the Ground Up, to me, was probably where I was most afraid, because we had this thing that had grown into something beautiful. I was afraid to drop the ball. There were so many people that were looking up and expecting a season 2 and hoping that this was all going to happen again and that this was their community now. And I felt pressure to put on the best version of it that we could. And we had always talked about different things we wanted to do. We wanted to bring in a skills camp that invited more than just our 3 in. We wanted that community to grow, but it's easy to say and it's hard to do. And so when season 2 came around, I think you saw a reflection of that with who we picked. We wanted people that, you know, maybe had a little more background in a sport. We wanted people that would bring in a group that we hadn't hit before. Joanna being a mother and having kids and pushing through the time barrier. And we wanted to continue this project being everyone's project.
And after season 2, rolling into a season 3, people had said, oh, you really should have somebody finish the second season. And we, based on the first year, said, we want to pick true beginners. It's not about the finish line. We would love to get somebody across the finish line, but we want to tell the journey of people that are new to this and just gritting it out and who have some reason to change through the process, you know, a personal growth. And that's who we picked.
And one of the most emotional moments for me was David after Unbound in season 2, saying that whenever he looks back, whether it's 20 years from now, 10 years from now, and he sees that silver Niner sitting in his garage, that it's a reminder that adventure's always out there. And it hit me really hard because Ryan and I don't care if they ride their bikes the next week, the next month, the next year. But that hopefully this project will always instill that feeling inside of you that there is nothing in your way, that you did and you pushed through to your absolute limit, and the bike was the vehicle for that.
So, where are we? What are we doing?
We're in outer space. Freaking Leadville. The place is insane.
That was for sure the hardest thing I've ever done.
When I said I liked long, relaxing walks, it wasn't this.